y'all, welcome to another episode of Enhance2DanceTV. Today I'm going to talk about two things, mobility and stability along with funk styles dancing. Now for those of us that aren't familiar with both of them, mobility stability is referring to a philosophy or idea that certain joints within our body need to be mobile and other joints need to be stable. When you look at the grand scheme of things, if your whole body and all of your joints are in a stable position, that might be good for a temporary movement such as a squat or deadlift. However, if all of our body is stable, that means we're not be able to move. That means we won't be able to have good articulation of the joints. We won't be able to have good fluidity throughout our movements throughout our day. Within mobility, the idea here is if you're too mobile, then you might need more stability. So there's a relatively large continuum. And I'm going to throw a picture up, boom, of where you can look at the certain segments of our body that needs requisite amounts of mobility and other areas where we need to be stable. If you can go all the way up, starting at the skull and ending at the feet or the ankles, you can see that there are different segments that need more portions of, we'll call it range of motion than others. Now let's apply this idea to the funk styles dancing. All right. So the funk styles dancing, it's a big umbrella term. It houses whacking, popping, waving, bopping, ticking, strobing. All these specific things require some type of range of motion in order to produce some type of funky movement. Let's be real. So if we're trying to dance, because that's what it comes down to, and your range of motion is lacking in specific joints. Let's call out, say, the shoulder. So say I have a shoulder issue, right? I'm going to say that if my scapula, my shoulder blade is stuck in this position, right? It's this way, and I can't get out of that position, so I'm going to go ahead and try to wave. All right? I'm going to try to move. Now, right now, I'm retracted. My scapula is retracted. It's pinned together, and my chest is going this way, right? It's going out this way. I'm trying to move, and it doesn't want to move. So I might have to use some other movements in order to get there. However, if I want to relax my body, right, using whatever method I want, and then I want to go back into that movement, I'm going to go with my wave. Now my shoulder blade is loose, right? I'm getting to the specific movements. I can get some different shoulder rolls throughout the movements, right? I can even do a shoulder roll this way, or a shoulder roll out that way. Or, if I really wanted to, I could do some other movements. So this, for example, botting or roboting, I can do those specific movements under a stable platform because it's more suited to my joints. I don't have as much range of motion for, let's use that as an example. And then I wanted to go through specific range of motion for this. And then I wanted to go to different items like that. Well, this specific dance doesn't require extreme amounts of mobility. So let's take into account another specific dance style that requires a lot of range of motion. Let's take into account Boogaloo, for example. If we really wanted to get into it, you're going to need mobility in almost all of your joints. All right, going from the ankle all the way up throughout my head, essentially, my skull. So if I really want to get into it, if I don't have, right, we're going to use an example as an ankle. If I don't have mobility in my ankles, I'm not going to be able to, one, support a large range of motion, and then two, I won't be able to express that range of motion because my range of motion is limited, right? Say if it's my ankle, I can't go up or down. I try to do some funky stuff, and I roll my ankle, I'm done. However, if I have a larger range of motion, I can recover possibly quicker. I can probably get out of specific ranges of motion in a better and safer manner because I now have the ability to express myself in larger ranges of motion. So, for example, if I have an ankle restriction and I try to go for a boogaloo motion like so, and then I try to follow through with it, right? I can't go all the way through my feet, which will translate to my hips, which will translate through my core, and I try to go here, I'm going to try to weight shift, all right? I can't exactly push off as well in order to do that. However, if I have extreme range of motion, which I do, then from here I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kick out, and I can go back and forth, I can do whatever I want to do really. So all that I need to do, if I have extreme ranges of motion on the other hand, on the other end of that continuum, I just need to control that in a better fashion. So this comes down to one big point here, or two big points rather. If you have more mobility in your joints, you need to control it better. All right, let this sink in for a second. If you have more mobility, you're gonna have to control that range of motion. That's a fair statement. If I can bring my head up over here and I can go all the way back, I'm gonna have to control it somehow. If I don't have the overhead range of motion, I can control this really well because this is literally all I have. If my ankle range of motion is only, if I wanted to plantar flex my ankle, and this is all I have, 5 degrees if that, I don't need to control that because I already got that. I need to improve that. So that's the other end of that continuum. That's the second point. If I'm stable, I need to improve my range of motion. So for almost all the videos after this specific one, we need to keep in mind that if we're mobile, we need to control that mobility. We need to control that range of motion. If we're too stable, if we lack range of motion, we will need to improve that range of motion and then afterwards also control that range of motion. Because if I release or if I loosen up some soft tissue, say a limiting factor for my overhead mobility happens to be, say, a lat, and then I go ahead and improve that range of motion dramatically, I will need to control that when I go into my dance now. Because now I have this much more range of motion as opposed to before I have only so much range of motion. All right, so keep these things in mind as you go through your warm-ups, as you go through your mobility drills, as you go through your different release techniques, because these things are going to be important as you go down the line, improving the way you look at how you improve your dance. All right, so until next time, keep it funky.